What happens when justice is denied? Thank you for the Advent Messenger who has made this available to Advent believers who are also concerned with the way the Church handles unjustly discipline upon pastors, elders, and laity who uphold historical Adventist truth. Even in the Church, fairness is essential. The Bible insists on due process, hearing both sides, weighing evidence, and protecting the innocent. Jesus asked, "Does our law judge a man before it hears him?" Righteous judgment demands a fair hearing. Paul commanded, "Do not receive an accusation against an elder except on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses." When these principles are ignored, trust is broken and the Church's witness is damaged. This story is a sobering reminder. How we handle justice reveals what we truly believe about God. Pastor James Milam, a dedicated Seventh-day Adventist, was suddenly removed from ministry without charges, hearing, or chance to defend himself. The Church ignored its own standards of justice, leaving him and his congregation in shock. Vague accusations, no evidence, and silence created suspicion and lasting harm. This isn't about revenge, it's a call to restore biblical justice and transparency. Pastor Milam's story warns of the dangers when human authority overrides God's commands. Even when systems fail, faithfulness to God remains and hope endures. James Milam grew up Adventist, but by 18 he left faith behind for nearly 2 decades. He served in the military, built a business, and lived far from God. Through it all, his grandmother prayed for him daily. Despite his rebellion, the seeds of faith remained, waiting for God's timing. His journey was marked by independence and worldly success, but spiritual emptiness. Unseen, those prayers became a lifeline, connecting him to grace he didn't yet recognize. In 2008, financial collapse and personal crisis shattered Milam's world. His wife, not an Adventist, gently urged him to return to church. At rock bottom, he chose to give God everything, no half measures. He dove into Bible study, determined to own his faith. Soon he sensed God calling him to leave business behind for ministry. The journey back was just beginning. Unsure, Milam asked God for clear signs. Each one was answered unmistakably. He and his family left Kansas City for Texas, trusting God's call. After years of study, he was ordained and served churches across Texas. In 2022, he moved to Hot Springs, Arkansas, ready for a new chapter. But this new assignment would test his faith more than ever before. The stage was set for a trial that would challenge everything he believed. Pastor Milam arrived in Hot Springs with a passionate vision to mobilize his church for mission, but he quickly met resistance from a small, influential group of leaders who opposed outreach and questioned core Adventist beliefs. This created division. While most members welcomed his focus, a vocal minority, including retired pastors, stood firmly in the way of progress. The fundamental conflict in the Hot Springs Church can be described as a clash between 2 opposing mindsets. On one side was Pastor Milam, a missional pastor driven by a sense of urgency to fulfill the Great Commission. He saw the church as an army to be trained and deployed, a center for outreach and soul winning. On the other side was a powerful faction that operated with what could be called a country club mentality. For them, the church was a private social club, a place for familiar faces and comfortable routines. They were more concerned with preserving their own preferences and internal harmony than with reaching the lost. When these 2 philosophies met, conflict was inevitable and immediate. This influential group included at least 7 retired or former pastors. While some of them initially stood with Pastor Milam, others quickly began to actively work against his leadership. Their experience and long-standing relationships within the conference gave them a level of influence that far exceeded their numbers. They knew how the system worked, and they were not afraid to use it to their advantage. Their opposition was not about minor details or personal preferences. It was a deep-seated resistance to his entire approach to ministry. They were comfortable and they did not want their comfort disturbed by the demands of active sacrificial mission work. This dynamic created a difficult and tense environment. While a large majority of the congregation was energized by the return to historic Adventist preaching and the new focus on mission, their enthusiasm was constantly being undermined. The small group of dissenting leaders created a constant undercurrent of negativity and criticism. They questioned the pastor's decisions in private conversations and worked behind the scenes to sow seeds of doubt and discord. It was a classic case of a vocal minority attempting to control the direction of the entire church, frustrating the will of the majority and hindering the work God had called them to do. The situation was deeply troubling for Pastor Milam. He was called to shepherd the entire flock, but a portion of that flock was actively working to sabotage the journey. He found himself in the difficult position of trying to lead the church forward while simultaneously managing internal opposition that was determined to hold it back. The vision for a vibrant, soul-winning church was clear to him and to most of the members. However, the persistent resistance from a few influential individuals created a constant state of tension and disunity, setting the stage for a crisis that would ultimately cost him his position. The conflict simmering beneath the surface eventually reached a boiling point. The persistent disunity, fueled by the influential group opposing Pastor Milam, did not go unnoticed by the Arkansas-Louisiana Conference Administration. Instead of investigating the root cause of the conflict or supporting their pastor's missional efforts, the conference leadership took a different approach. They saw the disunity itself as the problem, and they identified Pastor Milam as the cause. He received a formal letter from the conference stating that because this disunity had occurred during his time as pastor, he was being asked to seek employment elsewhere. The blame was placed squarely on his shoulders. This decision came shortly after a very disturbing incident. One of the former pastors who was leading the opposition openly boasted to a current church elder about his group's strategy. He claimed that he and others had contacted conference officials and delivered a powerful threat. They informed the conference that if Pastor Milam was not removed from the Hot Springs Church, they would ensure that over $1 million in planned giving from wills and trust funds would be withheld from the conference. While Pastor Milam cannot say with absolute certainty that this financial threat was the direct cause of the conference's decision, the timing was highly suspicious and deeply concerning. The conference's letter gave Pastor Milam 3 months to continue his pastoral duties, wrap up his work, and find a new position. It was a devastating blow, but he accepted the decision and prepared to inform his local church leadership. He called a meeting with his elder team and shared the news that the conference had asked him to leave. The response from the elders was not what the conference had anticipated. They were shocked and dismayed. Believing the decision was unjust and detrimental to the health of the church, the elders decided to act. They held an emergency meeting on their own without Pastor Milam present to discuss the situation. Unbeknownst to Pastor Milam, the elder team independently drafted and sent a letter directly to the conference administration. In their letter, they expressed their strong support for their pastor and formally stated that they did not want him to leave. They believed he was leading the church in the right direction and that his removal would be a great loss. This act of support, meant to defend their pastor, was completely misinterpreted by the conference officials. They immediately assumed that Pastor Milam had orchestrated the elders' response. They accused him of insubordination and of deliberately fomenting a rebellion against their authority. The conference's reaction to the elders' letter was swift and severe. Pastor Milam was given a harsh ultimatum. resign in 72 hours, or be terminated. He prayerfully refused, believing he had done nothing wrong. The conference fired him. His ministry ended abruptly, leaving his family hurt and uncertain. Yet God impressed them to stay in Hot Springs, trusting his plan for their future. After months of silence, Pastor Milam and his family were shocked by a late-night email from the conference. The message announced that his ordination would be revoked the next morning without warning or due process. The reasons? Association with independent ministries, accepting tithe directly, and allegedly disparaging elders. The decision was final. Pastor Milam faced accusations he insists were false, claims of improper ministry partnerships, soliciting tithe, and turning against elders. No evidence or witnesses were ever presented. Supportive elders defended him, but he was condemned in secret, denied a fair hearing, and never allowed to face his accusers. The process ignored due process and biblical counsel, leaving him judged without a trial. Pastor Milam appealed his revoked ordination following biblical principles and church policy. He sent respectful, detailed letters to church leaders, but received only silence, except for a brief email confirming receipt. The church never explained its actions, leaving a cloud of suspicion and deep wounds with no wrongdoing ever proven. Pastor Milam's sudden removal and loss of ordination weighed heavily, not just on his career but on his identity and calling. His family faced shock and grief, while whispers and suspicions spread through the church. As Zechariah says, to be wounded in the house of friends is deeply painful. Yet, Pastor Milam anchored his hope in God, not in any human institution. In the quiet aftermath of his removal, Pastor Milam faced a crossroads, bitterness or forgiveness. With a gentle strength, he chose to let go of anger, understanding that holding on to pain only deepens the wound. He released judgment, placing his trust in God's hands, and began to pray for those who had hurt him. Through this act of forgiveness, he discovered a profound sense of peace and healing, allowing his heart to grow lighter and his spirit to find new hope. Pastor Milam's journey reminds us that forgiveness is not just a choice, but a path to true healing, a gentle opening of the heart that brings lasting peace and deeper faith. Cast out by the denominational system, Pastor Milam and his family faced total uncertainty, no paycheck, no visible support. Yet as they trusted God, He provided in remarkable ways, timely gifts, food, and encouragement. This trial forged a deeper trust, teaching them that God's faithfulness is not limited by human systems. Even in disappointment, God never fails. His plans remain sure. After leaving denominational employment, Pastor Milam's ministry entered a new chapter. God opened doors for him to connect with like-minded ministries, become a panelist on the Watchman Report, and serve as vice president of Loud Cry International, empowering others for mission. His journey shows that when one door closes, God opens a greater one. Pastor Milam stayed in Hot Springs, following God's call. Disillusioned families gathered for worship, forming the Remnant Mission Society, a group focused on authentic Adventist mission. God provided a mission house, becoming a hub for Bible study, outreach, and online worship, proving a church is defined by united believers, not buildings. Leading these new and growing ministries is a work of faith in every sense of the word. Neither Advent Media Connect, Loud Cry International, nor Remnant Mission Society are self-supporting entities at this time. Since leaving denominational employment, Pastor Milam has not received a regular salary. He and his family live in complete dependence on God, trusting Him to impress upon the hearts of His people the need to support the work of proclaiming the final warning message to the world. This journey has been a continuous lesson in faith, proving that God's economy operates on principles of trust and generosity that transcend human financial systems. This model of faith-based support is not a burden, but a blessing. It keeps the ministry grounded in a constant state of prayer and reliance on God. It also provides an opportunity for believers everywhere to become active partners in the work. Every gift, no matter the size, is a direct investment in soul winning and in strengthening the faith of others. It is a chance to participate in the loud cry and help prepare a people for Christ's return. Pastor Milam's reliance on God's provision through his people is a powerful reminder that we are all part of one body, called to support and uplift one another in the Great Commission. For those who have been blessed by Pastor Milam's testimony and are impressed by the Holy Spirit to support the vital work he is doing, there are direct ways to get involved. Whether it is through prayer, sharing the online messages, or providing financial assistance, every contribution helps to advance the kingdom of God. This is an invitation to partner not with a man, but with a mission that God is clearly blessing. It is an opportunity to stand with those who are on the front lines, courageously proclaiming unpopular truths in a time of widespread compromise and confusion within the church and the world. Pastor Milam remains accessible to those who wish to connect with him. He welcomes questions, prayer requests, and correspondence from anyone seeking to understand more about his journey or the ministries he serves. He firmly believes in the power of fellowship and encouragement among God's people. For anyone who feels led to contact him directly, whether to offer support or to ask for prayer, he can be reached via email. This open line of communication reflects his heart as a shepherd, which remains unchanged despite his change in circumstances. You may contact him at Pastor James Milam. Email stjohn415yahoo.com. Pastor James Milam's story is a call for biblical justice, a reminder that due process, fairness, and transparency are foundational to our faith. When church leaders ignore these principles, they harm individuals and the church's witness. We must hold leaders accountable, protect the innocent, and ensure our actions reflect Christ's righteousness. The world is watching. Let's answer this call for justice. Though disappointment comes, this is a story of unshakable hope. Our relationship is with God, not a human organization. Even when rejected, God remains faithful and provides in unexpected ways. The mission is urgent, the harvest is plentiful, and God calls all who are willing. Jesus is coming soon. Let's remain faithful, share hope, and finish the work together.